Welcome to my new Zoomcast series, Fintech and Philosophy, where we explore the personal motivations that drive the success behind the fintech's top C-suite executives. I'm Cindy Taylor, publisher and co-founder of Digital Wealth News, America's leading source for news in the financial technology sector. And today, I'm joined by my friend Jim Rao, my wild and crazy friend Jim from Entoro, founder and managing partner at Entoro Capital, a middle market traditional and alternative investment bank in Houston, Texas. Mr. Rao has over 25 years experience in capital raising, deal structuring, and energy finance, and we'll learn more about that later, and recently co-founded a really interesting company, Capturiant, which offers the sale of carbon offsets via an exchange utilizing distributed ledger technology, one of my favorite topics. Now let's get started. Jim, thank you so much for joining me today on Fintech and Philosophy. So excited to have you.
You're welcome.
And we want to hear all, it's our pleasure. We want to hear all about your journey into the digital wealth sector, because I know it's a very interesting one and how you got there. So let's roll. Tell us briefly about your roles at Capturiant and Entoro and what you do there as CEO.
Well, I'll start with Entoro. So that was the predecessor to everything, and really the genesis. So in 2015, after being the CEO of a public oil and gas company and a number of other ventures, I got back into more of a finance role. And my view was always, how can you raise money easier? So I started Entoro with the concept of saying, how do you do this? And to me, this was early blockchain, early digitization, early platforms, and a lot to do with the Jobs Act of 2012. So I wanted to be the first online digital investment bank. And of course, that has grown through 4 or 5 acquisitions and just organic growth as we have today. And Entoro is an investment bank, broker dealer, 2 RIAs, we're a commodity pool operator, transfer agent, Texas insurance broker, and a valuation company, all under the Entoro brand. And then we also, actually there's more, but we'll try to stay focused. And then on the other side of the equation we have, which is 100% owned by Entoro, is Capturiant, which is an entity that's about 18 months old, designed to be the first regulated environmental assets firm, really focused on risk management. We have a digital assets license out of the Bahamas to operate. We are a validator, authenticator, registry, and exchange with a real focus on hydrocarbons and non-nature-based activities.
So interesting. I love that. I can't wait to hear more about that. Let's roll over to a little bit of information about you. Tell us where you live and why. Tell us about your wonderful wife, Maggie, and your kids, and tell us about what they do professionally and just about your family in general.
Fair enough. I live in Houston, Texas, and I've been married to a physician for 33 plus years. And she does a lot of great work in the cancer world. So she's a cancer physician. I have 2 kids. One's an Aggie, Texas A&M grad in chemical engineering. She's looking to go back to law school, I think, at some point, or go to law school. And then I have a son who's a Longhorn at the University of Texas, chemical engineering as well. And I made them both get securities licenses too. So, I may be a mean dad or something like that, but so
That's very cool.
I wasn't born in Texas, but damn it, I got here as fast as I could.
Well, we love Texas. We love all the freedoms that Texas has to offer, and I know you do too. To that end, tell us where you were raised. Where did you go to college? I happen to know where you went to college. And just tell us generally about your upbringing and early years and how they shape who you are now.
I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia. My dad was in the military. So that was early 1963. So I affectionately say I'm not 60 years old. I say I'm a level 60. So it changes the viewpoint a little bit. But so growing up in a military family all over the world shapes you as you're either going to be an extrovert or an introvert. And I think we know how I came out. Came out as a screaming extrovert. But I think that shapes a lot of what you do. But For me, I think the thing that shapes you maybe the most in your life is well, besides parents, is actually your birth order. I'm the oldest, and I have all the characteristics of
Mm,
an oldest. And I believe when I ask people questions, I I learn more from what their birth order is than anything else.
huh. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. So I should tell you I'm the youngest. What are you going to tell me about me?
I would have that would have been exactly what I would have expected, but that's
I hate that. Or I'll say I love it. I don't know. Profiling is so useful, isn't it? Even if it's politically incorrect.
well, stereotypes are there for a reason. Because most of
Yes,
the time
they
they're
are.
true. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's move along here. Jim, do you have any personal passion projects or outside activities that help shape you who you are? I actually would love if you'd share some information about your property in South Dakota too, because I think it's pretty
Uh,
interesting.
that that is a little bit of a personal pleasure for me.
Yeah.
Years ago, 20 years or so ago, I bought the property adjacent to my father, and it's
Hmm.
a tree farm, and it's a great place to relax, and um, it's one of those places you can go and tinker and kind of just relax because
Yeah.
it's 6,000 feet in elevation. The sky's normally nice and clear, and the air is fresh, and you can recharge a little bit. It's a fantastic place to go. So for me, going to high school in South Dakota, then going to the University of Wyoming, Arizona State, and a few other places, it's a personal refuge, right? It's a nice thing
Yeah.
to do, and I have all kinds of projects that go on there. So those are my get back to uh, get back to being a man, because we push paper all day and hit a keyboard, and
Yeah.
you don't really get to build anything. But when I go there, I can build something, and you actually have the pleasure that you normally don't get. So
I like
it's a lot of
that. Yeah. That's so cool. I love it. I've seen pictures, a few pictures of it. It looks like a really cool place. You have a very interesting career path. I'd love for you to share with our audience how your career led you to where you are today at Entoro, and just share a little bit about your background because I do think it's quite fascinating.
Well, I think I started off like most kids when you're in college, not having a clue what the hell you wanted to do.
Yeah,
I've always,
right.
and I truly didn't. I loved history, and I went to one history class in college, and I'm like, I don't think I can get a job here, so I better really stay on the finance track, and and went that way. Um, my desire was always to do international activity. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that they valued travel and experiences. So I've already been to 75 plus countries or something myself, but the I enjoyed that, and I wanted to be in international finance, and I kind of positioned myself for that. I ended up working one summer on the swaps desk at the World Bank. Graduate school. I started off in the retail brokerage business, but as I matured and started getting a little bit more experience, it became much more of a global view, and that to me was important. Then I worked almost 4 years for the International Finance Corporation, which is the investment bank of the World Bank, and then when my wife matched in medical school, we moved to Houston, and I worked for a little company called Enron for 6 years. And it
Hmm.
was a crazy time. It was when merchant energy was really starting to get its feet under it, and when all kinds of things were created as far as structured finance and derivatives, and that whole space. And it was a great, as far as training and experience and exposure, that actually formed a lot. And some of the ways I approach it now, you got to be very creative, open-minded, opportunistic, etc. But always with a focus on kind of a risk management. How do you do things prudently? So being securities licensed for 35 years, or oh god, maybe even a little bit more than that, but it you've got to be able to do things quickly, without bureaucracy, but in a compliant manner, is what I've always said you need to focus on.
Yes.
So I think some of
Hmm.
those have really focused for me. And then as I go into the career, and then I went to El Paso, and then I went to not the city but the company, and then was the CEO of a public Australian oil and gas company, and a lot of the things there that I've been an operator, oil and gas operator myself. So
Hmm.
a lot of I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of entrepreneurial things, um, and I've had some great successes, and I've had some great failures. So
Right.
um, you've got to have we call it tuition. right? And
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
I've paid a lot in tuition. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, listen, I get it. And entrepreneurs don't I'll, I'm trying to think of anyone who's had all success. And if they have, I'm like, I don't know who
They haven't
that
tried
person would
hard
be.
enough, or they've been given
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
they got a head
Yeah.
start, which I don't really call that's not necessarily entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurialism to me is taking an idea you created and build
Yes.
nearly zero, and you were
Yes.
able to have success and or at least the opportunity for success.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, having lived the entrepreneurial life as well, I have all due respect for what you've done and entrepreneurs in general because man, it's you got to have some cojones to get
It,
through some
I
of
would
that.
actually tell most people don't do it, okay? Because it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
horribly difficult, and if you're not willing to sacrifice a lot
Yeah.
of things, you unfortunately it doesn't get handed to you. You have to work
No,
80
it
hour
does not
weeks
get handed
plus.
to you. Fair
It's not
enough. I actually want to move on now and I want to hear about Capturiant. I know that we've had private conversations around it a bit, but I would love for you to share with our audience the concept behind Capturiant and the future of carbon credits and ESG investing. ESG is controversial. I know some people love it, some people hate it, but it's out there in the lexicon. It's crazy important right now. So you've taken your personal life and philosophy and created something pretty interesting. And I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we really me at the end of the day, you don't create the policy, but if these mandates and these laws and everything are brought upon corporations and others, they have to deal with it in a risk management perspective. So
Right.
my philosophy is that it's better to approach them in a proactive way and deal with it than to try to hide from them because uh, there are billions of people on this planet that have a philosophy that the environment is somehow crashing upon them, etc. I don't get into the policy. I don't make an opinion on any of that. However, there are either compliance or voluntary activities that companies need to abide by, and we're trying to help them do that, navigate those waters. So, in the viewpoint that I had, and I was fortunate in the sense of having a strong finance background and a very interesting entrepreneurial background. I also worked for the World Bank, so I understood how the development banks work, and so to me, having that early stage experience was beneficial. Now, Capturiant is really a it was created with the name capture and giant. So giant capture really of carbon.
Okay.
that was the genesis of that name. And what we set out to do is really be that risk management group that helps CFOs. So my target audience is to how to help CFOs manage um, tax credits, how to carbon credits, biodiversity activities, all the things that get how to avoid greenwash, how to make sure things get certified, how all of those things that most of them, most C-suite guys just they they don't need 20 people on their team. They need to just look to obtain and hire experts in the field and have a very rifled approach to it, not trying to do everything to everybody. Now, this is different than DEI, and the E and the S and the G, as you mentioned, can be controversial. Uh, I don't think anybody from an environmental side wants to see waterways get destroyed or pollution in the air. That's not it whatsoever. I don't think really anybody buys into that. I won't touch the S and the G because that's just not an area of expertise, nor is it. It's so subjective that I don't even want to get down to. I want to get to the from the environmental side of the equation of what really is happening now. It's very different between what the U.S. is and what the rest of the world is. And in the U.S., you're seeing a pushback on the anti-ESG, aspect of it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what some of these, what maybe even Congress thinks about it. The Europeans are going full in. They're all in on this activity, and that's one of the things we focus on. There's 10 to 12,000 U.S. companies that are going to be subject to EU rules. The carbon border tax, all these things that they get that they're going to be responsible for. and to know about it. And we hope to be able to provide, some real critical help and financial tools for them. So for me, it's that aspect of it. The U.S. is going to be its own player. In fact, like everything else we do, we're the odd man out on. So I'm not saying that's good or bad, but even when it comes to what the definitions are in the environmental space, what the accounting standards are going to be. Of course, US has US GAAP in accounting, and the rest of the world uses a different system. The SEC's come out that says we want to have our own standard, and the rest of the world will have theirs. It's almost like English and metric measurement. We
Hmm.
continue to be uh, I'm not saying we need to be rolling with the global kind of crowd, but some of these things we end up making more difficult, on ourselves than anything else,
Yeah.
which it
Yeah.
gets into problems with standardization. We almost create as many problems as we try to solve.
Yep. Well, I think it sounds like an incredible, platform. And if there's a way to make this all compliant and fit into modules, and I think I did ask you this separately offline, but this is a platform that's not only American centric. I'm correct because
Oh,
it's based in the Bahamas. Yeah,
actually, everything's Cayman Island entities with the exchange in the
yeah.
Bahamas. We're a global
Okay,
validator, authenticator. The registry is based. We're operated out of the states just because it's you got to operate where you can get talent.
right.
So we really have focused on that, but it's a global activity, and you'll be seeing some interesting news releases for us on where we're setting up other operations, but really a feeder to everything, and try to get a standardization as standardize as much as possible. We differentiate ourselves for the most part being in Houston. We have the advantage of being around the oil and gas, the power, the mining, the petrochemicals business, which is about 80% of the GHG and emissions
Sure,
activity. And we're
sure,
really the only player in that space because we have that team, that makeup, where most of the market it's kind of the 80-20. 80% of the emissions, and we're 20% of the salt. But what you really see is 80% of the people involved are on the 20% side, and that's the nature base. So reforestation. And now we can do that. We will do that. It's just not a focus or an expertise. We would rather focus on those things that are highly emission centric, that are, big projects, et cetera, that require specialized individuals that have the backgrounds in geology and engineering and finance and all the things that the normal environmental crowd does not necessarily have. So we've really
sure.
focused on it, and we do things that are measurable and monitorable. That
Yeah.
when you buy a credit, you know it's going to be of top quality, and you know what the provenance is.
Cool. It sounds so interesting. I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in this. We're just about done with our interview. I have two more questions for you. First of all, how do all the items that you've just shared with us impact your role today as CEO at Entoro?
They impact me that I can't
Yeah,
work in an 8-hour time shift. I'm closer to 15 to 20 hours.
I
So that's
know.
how it impacts me.
I
But
know.
we've come a long way. We've started from literally zero, and
Yeah.
we are selling credits. We're doing validate. So we're up and running. We've got a great team. We've established some really neat things, and you're going to see some really interesting financial instruments and products coming out in the next 2 or 3 months. So we're excited about that. We got to announce our board last week. So we've got a fantastic board of advisors. So excited about that, and the expansion, and all the things we're doing is fantastic, um, from strategic partners to clients. So it's been fantastic.
Oh, that's so cool. Finally, if you were to select one phrase or motto that you live your life by, what would it be and why?
People give me a hard time for this, but I think it's a phrase that George Patton said, and that is a a project violently executed today is better than a perfectly executed plan in a week. So
Oh, interesting.
if there was kind of a simple phrase or whatever, I follow the general's uh, viewpoint on that. You can't wait for everything to be perfect, and sometimes
No.
you have to step off the porch, and you got to take your chances. You got to have good team, good people, good vision, and know you can get it done. And I think that's probably my favorite phrase.
I like that. I thought it was going to have something to do with driving quickly. Because I've been with you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know where
I
you're going
picked up my
fast, but I
I
think it
picked up
is.
my fair share of tickets, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, Jim, that wraps up our conversation. It's been really, really fun. Thank you to our audience for joining us today, and make sure to check out Entoro and Capturiant online. We'll have the links for those in the following slides. Cheers from the last best place, Bozeman, Montana, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.